So you timestamped this for me. Let's take a look.
And you can do that, and it looks great. I will say it wasn't like a big focus of mine because hilariously next to me, Zepla was sitting there.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I want to say messing with that for 3 hours. I don't know what she got done.
It's true. It's true, dude.
It was hilarious. I was like, is
Yes.
this video just gonna be all you glamoring, like changing
Yes.
the dyes? Because
Who else is gonna do it? That's the end game, right? I mean, who else is gonna tell everybody exactly how every piece of armor is gonna die? You don't know.
she went in deep, and I was like,
I
no,
went-
no, I pressed a few buttons, and I made them look like
Went
characters I
deep.
thought were cute, and
did.
that's
I did.
really it.
That
I
sounds so
won't know. Yeah. I won't know until I mess with the glams and things that I have that I'm already using, because really it was like, all right, well, I can make this red mage armor more red. You know, it's like I guess I could.
What?
It really, I was just checking to see how it worked, and once I figured.
There was so much to check. Okay, and because you need to check how does each armor die individually, and then how does it look if you apply those exact dyes to the entire armor, and then what about the effect on the weapon, because some of the weapon parts are getting dyed. And I wanted to show you also in the video how some parts of the, like some dyes are not the right color that you would expect. So like a jet black dye is not going to be the darkest dark a lot of the times, and a gunmetal black might be a little bit more gray than you might expect. And a dark purple is actually a lot of times the darkest dark that you can get, but it's going to depend on the different lighting situations. Obviously, somebody had to do that. And it's funny because Square Enix people, they were asking like questions to different content creators and like asking us how we felt about things. And one of them asked me what I was doing and like what I was surprised by. And I remember I was like, well, one thing I thought that was really surprising was that a lot of the job armors give you nail polish. And I love that. Like the black mage armor gives you a black nail polish. And dancer armor, I think, gives you red nail polish. I think you even get a pedi. I think you get a pedicure. And you can change one of the dyes that's going to change the color of the nail polish. But then I'm thinking, well, do I honestly want to change a nail polish every time? Anyway. The guy was just staring at me. Like, you know. And the guy was like, I was just like, I've just been so busy with the job armors. I've been so busy in G-pose. And the guy's like, I don't think anybody has told me that so far. Everybody's talking about, Viper and Picto. And I'm like, oh, I haven't even got to that yet. Viper and Picto, that's for, I'll do that later. I'm serious. I mean, look, I was there to do the work that mattered to me, that was important.
Figured it out. I was like, all right, this is pretty simple, and then I moved on. But yeah, I saw people were really getting into it, and I imagine that's the case. If you have a lot of different gear, a lot of things you want to test out and try, you'll be spending a lot of time doing it. Because you can change so much more now, and you don't realize it until you're in it, what adding a whole additional bit of your outfit to change can do. And suddenly you're like, oh boy, okay, all right. So you can make like, even huge. Black on black, there's still weird adjustments and things you can make where it's like, yo, all right, so we got like that dark black, but what if we do like a gray? Like what?
Oh my God, that's what I just said. Is that what I was telling Jesse? I think that I did. I must have been sitting there. Because he was sitting right next to me. So I bet that I was, first of all, he sees me just eating so many chips. And I'm drinking these mocktails, like what I'm chugging them. And I'm like, hey, Jesse, look, Look, dark purple is actually the darkest color. Why isn't jet black the darkest color? Like, doesn't gunmetal black seem like a little too gray? Like, doesn't jet black seem a little too gray? Compare it to gunmetal black, Jesse. Look. Look, Jesse. We better stock up on our dark purple dyes because those are gonna skyrocket in price, I bet, after Dawntrail when people see that it's actually really dark. Super dark. You can't tell it's purple. It just seems really dark black. Yeah. This is
interesting.
hilarious.
It's going to be a lot of fun for people.
Yeah,
this is actually hilarious. Yeah. Jesse, thoughts on Picto? This is actually interesting.
Combinations are endless, like you said, and I think like the end game in terms of like customizing and expressing yourself just, you know, is another notch higher, right? And
wow, did Quazii get a new camera? Yourself. It's a really high quality image. It's a very professional image he has.
Let's talk about the jobs before we kind of move on to talk about the dungeon, right? And sure. I know you.
Yeah, I want to hear what he said about Picto.
Hands, dirty with Pictomancer, no pun intended, and you also tried out Viper and whatnot.
Here in my mouth.
Let's start with Pictomancer. Like, what's your vibe about the job? How did you feel about it?
So it's weird because when I watched again. Everything you saw in the stream, the live letter that showed off Pictomancer and showed off Viper, everything about that, I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. And then I played it and I was like, I don't know that I get it. And so
Nobody got it.
Almost lied to because both seemed much easier. But I realized while playing that Picto, as we're talking about, for example, there's a lot about it that is easy, but there's a lot about it that you're like, okay, what can I cast that lets me, when I'm moving, what can I cast?
Yeah.
What do I have to pre-cast? What do I have to, hit with different combos? When do I use the combos? I'm like, this is, again, one of those optimal playstyle things. If you're just going to press buttons and goof, go nuts. As far as I can tell,
I don't know.
That's fine with Pictomancer.
I don't know if
just
it's
have
gonna
fun.
Be fine.
But I was like,
because my concern is you can kind of lock yourself down and make it so you're not doing anything if you're just standing there casting 3 motifs in a row as soon as like, just imagine this, okay? You're in a dungeon. Normally you can cast your motifs instantly outside of combat, but you forget and they pull the pack. Now you need to hard cast your motifs. And so you're hard casting one motif, it doesn't do any damage. You hard cast the next one, it also doesn't do any damage. And you hard cast another one, it doesn't do any. So you got your motifs ready, but you actually haven't done anything. And now the pack is dead. By the time you're done doing with all that, pack is dead or half dead. That did happen to me a little bit. So you're gonna have to plan ahead somewhat, and at least you're gonna be able to use swift cast more often. But this is one of the things that I'm actually looking forward to about Picto, because I think it's going to make for some interesting situations where you can strategize. When do I want to stand there and start painting? When do I want to choose to do this, like, downtime? And the downtime is it's very much rewarded because the spells that you cast with your motifs are banging. Like, they do so much damage. So it makes up for it. It's kind of like with a dancer. You put yourself out of combat a little bit while you are dancing, but it doesn't matter because your dance hits like a truck, and it's kind of the same deal.
What's the optimal way to play? What do I press when? How do I press it? What do I need to do? And so
people will figure that out. People will figure that out.
Figure out, okay, well,
don't worry about it too much.
A great example is I was going through all the different spells. Basically, I threw myself in the deep end and I ran the dungeon with both.
Right.
And I was like, so I can learn to play when I'm in
sense.
combat and doing stuff. But like, how do I get some of these to activate? There's one where you get just an automatic cast of your like Rainbow Blast.
Yeah.
And I couldn't figure out how to get it to work. And the guide that we had said, yo, this is how you do it. I was like, it's not working.
Did it? They gave us a guide. They gave us a PDF that like was supposed to explain how all the spells work. And I read it. And it did not help at all. Because I don't think that it was that clear. The Viper one was way more clear. But then that one ended up being super unnecessary because you could just press the shiny buttons. With Picto, I feel like they went into way less detail.
Later did I realize that the dungeon was level 92, 91, and this was a level 100 spell, and I'm like, oh, well, that explains everything. So I had to go outside, and I had to, you know, just fight out in the open and make a little guy to fight. And when I was doing that, I was like, okay, now that I can slow it down, I understand more, and I get what's going on. But at the end of the day, it had the same vibe, even though there's a few really quick abilities, it had the same vibe as every other casting job except for Red Mage is what I play. It, like, felt a little slow. I was like, you know, I was like,
compared to Red Mage,
kind of
it's slower. It is more methodical.
Comparative to Viper, which is
Viper is lightning
spamming
fast.
buttons all the time. I was
Right.
like, I don't know that I
They're
like
very
this
different.
as much.
Right.
And
Paced.
it's super cute. It's very fun. Once you get it, it
Very
clicks.
different pace.
Way more than Viper. Picto just is like, once you're in, you're in. It makes sense. And so I think people are going to love it. But it's also just...
More than Viper.
It reminded me of Black Mage a little bit. And as a person who doesn't like Black Mage, sorry, Black Mage players. I just don't. It's too slow for me. I was like, all right, this is fun. It's cute. It looks nice. But I can see
So did he
me
like
being
Viper?
bored playing it. And so I was like, all right. Yeah.
Dude, I love you know,
So did
all
he
these
like-
things you said, and there's two comments I'll make here. The first is I experienced the same
Yeah, you can't do art fast.
kind
Art
of
needs
confusion
time.
when I tried my hand at this, because Yoshi P made it seem easy on the life
Yeah.
letter.
It's so not. It's not
It's-
easy.
yeah,
it takes a moment.
And it's not only us, because to my left was Arthurs, and I would say he's like one of the best players in the game. At in
Okay, yeah. So Quazii, he's sitting on the other side of the table from me. Directly across from me is Arthur's, and sitting to Arthur's right is Quazii. So we're all sitting there together trying to figure this out.
You see, and even him at the end of the day, he turned to me and said, "I have no idea how Pictomancer is played." And I think it goes back to what you just said, which is the optimal playstyle seems convoluted, or rather,
Dude, me and Arthur's together really were trying to figure this out for most of the day, and it was a challenge. Eventually, we did, but I remember being like, "Dude, when are you supposed to press the Moogle beam? When are you supposed to use the hammer? Like." Were you able to use the hammer plus the claw plus the rainbow during your burst? And then what about the black paint button? Because all this stuff cannot fit in the burst. So what the hell is supposed to go into the burst? Because the hammer doesn't respond to hyperphantasia, which you need to activate your rainbow. But obviously you need to put the rainbow in burst. And hammer is like fell cleave, so doesn't that need to be in the burst? But you can't put all the hammers in burst. It seems like you can only put one smack of the hammer in burst. So that doesn't make any sense. And it's like... This is conversations that, look, let the optimizers figure that out, okay? We don't have to worry about that. Wait for the people to figure out their rotation, and then we'll just do what they say. Let them math it out. But at least, you know, I wanted to at least get the idea of what needs to happen in there.
it requires a bit of kind of using your brains a little to say, oh, I prepped this drawing for this window and shit like that, right?
Yes.
So the way to describe this is
you need to prep your drawings for the windows. You cannot go into your burst. You cannot just press Starry Sky without having your creature canvas ready and your weapon canvas ready. You can't do it. You can't do it. You shouldn't do it. And this is something that's, it's good and bad. It's good because having failure states within the job will make it more rewarding to play. It's bad because there will be people that are, they don't know this because it's not apparent. It's kind of difficult to figure out, and they might struggle with doing damage on the job.
So imagine if you split your hotbar in two. One side would be you have your 3 prep drawings that then you can cast another spell that then you can cast a third finishing spell. And then some of those become other things. So it's like I can keep casting to make a Moogle that then becomes the dude from Final Fantasy IX, or I can keep casting to do a little hammer attack, or every so often I can make the ground, I can make everyone touch grass, right?
Yeah.
But then
You can make everyone touch grass.
you have a few abilities that go off of those. So
That's hilarious.
there's one where you make the ground glow, and then if you have enough I'm trying to think of what it's called. Whatever the points are that you can get a free cast of your like rainbow power, and you can blast across the screen.
Yeah.
But then you also have a whole other thing going on, which is you have palette swaps. You do like light attack, and then you do a big attack, or the AoE versions of those. And then you can swap once you get your holy off to dark attack, like dark attack, and then you can do whatever the dark version of the holy spell is. And you can keep swapping back and forth and do that. That's a whole other thing. And I
thought you could only have one black paint at a time.
Couldn't figure out. I was like, so is the main bit important, or is this bit important? Because the main bit seems to have way more cooldowns, and it seems like, okay, so I should focus on this, but this thing over here also affects a lot of other things happening with my character. And I was like, so what do I prioritize here? And I feel like it should be the paintings, but this other thing is so much more efficient and damaging. And I'm like, I don't know what to do here. And I kept trying to switch up and figure it out, and I was like, I got nothing. I have absolutely no clue how this works.
I think this is the experience most people will have.
So we'll leave it to the math geniuses and the balance to figure it out. But I totally hear you, because like the black combo you just described has...
Because as fun as it is, and as in-depth as it is, I feel like many people will struggle.
Higher potency, but the cast time is longer. And and like you said, there's two currencies, which is the white, kind of paint bullets, and the black paint bullets that you have to swap between them using like an ability.
Okay, well, I don't need to watch this whole interview.
I suspect it's
2 hours
kind of
long.
prepping
But I
for
was
that
just
2-minute burst window to have
what
all
he
your
had to
black
say
spells and your charges available
about the
for
dyes
that. But
and
I'll leave
about
it to kind of like the math geniuses to figure that out.
Yeah, the black and white spells are where your AoE
It's interesting to me.
So I'm like, if you're running through a dungeon, you're mostly dropping those as you get through stuff, and then you get to a boss. So I was like, okay, so is it you're focusing here while you're running the dungeon, and then a boss you're over here? I was like, I have no answers. But at the same time, I was like, I'm so confused, but it also feels slow. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know if this is what I'm gonna do. I was like, I like it in theory, but yeah, it may not be for me.
Based off your comment already, though, before we move on to Viper, well, Picto has...
Okay, well, I'll give you all the link to this so you can watch the whole thing, because it is quite long. But it's funny that Jesse remembers me spending 3 hours in G-Pose, and I had planned to do that. That was, unlike last time, where I accidentally got hung up looking at bunny boys for 3 hours. And then I ran out of time. This time I planned to spend 3 hours in G-Pose,